Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, a couple of weeks ago, we did a show on home rule, local government reform. We're going to hear from the other side today, and then Jan Jarrett from PennFUTURE's in. We're going to have a little update on Pennsylvania's environment. That and more after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. First, let me thank Senator Arlen Specter, who was guest host last week, while yours truly was, well, off doing something else. Coming up, we're going to have Governor Ed Rendell. We're chatting with his office now. We get a date. Governor Rendell will host the program. He's done that once before. But now, home rule, local government reform, what's it all about? Two sides, two different positions. Joining me are two county commissioners from Lancaster County, Dennis Stuckey and Scott Martin. Gentlemen, welcome.
It's nice to be here.
Nice to be here,
Thank you for having us.
Well, you're quite welcome. Dennis, let me start with you. Let's set the stage. A couple of weeks ago, we had on some supporters of home rule, and for those folks who are not aware, home rule is basically a way to change the form of government, in this case, in a county. I think 6 counties have done that so far. Am I factually correct about
yes.
that? 6 have done that, and using a charter mechanism, the voters get to decide whether they want to keep the form of government, and in this case, change it in both some of the way the county is structured and some of the ways in which the county assumes powers that the state has said it can assume. Am I right factually so far?
So far.
All right. All right. Now, you have some concerns about the current home rule charter.
That's correct.
In Pennsylvania. Why don't you talk a little bit about what the charter says so that our folks out there understand and what you like or don't like about it?
Well, as an elected official, I was the elected county controller. I made a statement publicly that citizens ought to have the ability to evaluate their government. The current form, after all that process, the current form of the charter causes me concern from the standpoint that it makes the county commissioners, who are fundamentally administrative, part-time, and puts the running of the government, the local government, into the hands of an unelected official who really answers to the board, but there's also a non-interference clause in the charter as offered currently. What that does to me, or what that means to me, is that it takes away the representatives of the people who were elected by them in the running of the local government.
So let me see if I understand this guy. So they're talking about there currently, as in most counties, three commissioners, except for the home rule counties for our viewers out there, and the charter says we'll eliminate the 3, we'll increase it to 5, but the day-to-day operation will be turned over to a manager for all practical purposes, right?
Yes.
And as your colleague points out, you folks have some concerns about that. You have additional concerns.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anytime the administrative function of what we do is about 80 to 90% of the job. We have very limited legislative functions or abilities. When we have issues legislatively, we go to our state delegation and we work those out. But to remove that power and put it in the hands of an unelected administrator with part-time commissioners who are really never going to be around, how can it truly be accountable to the people? Where's the voters' say in voting that out if it's going in the wrong direction?
Go ahead. You have anything to add to that?
Correct. Just to build on what Commissioner Martin said, much of what we do, 80 to 90%, is administrative, sitting around the table trying to decide how to run the county, what policies to set, not necessarily taking votes, but how to run the county, what should we do, what decisions to make on how do we spend the taxpayers' dollars.
Yeah, I mean, just generalizing, I mean, I think what's important for our listeners, many of them around the state, this is something occurring in one county, but as you folks know, this debate could occur in any county, right, providing a certain process played out, correct?
Absolutely, and I think what's important to understand, one thing that really stood out to me, and I looked at it from a political standpoint first, is when I looked at all the other home rule counties, the other 6, the thing that really stood out to me was they're very staunchly Democratic counties. Well, be as it may, I just went, why is that? And so I started to look into it a little bit further from the standpoint of what does home rule really mean? And really, we're vested with certain powers by the state constitution right now, and we're able to do certain things. With home rule, you still have to do all those things, But what it does is it gives you the ability to do other things that aren't prohibited by law.
And you're concerned that that's too sweeping grant of power to the county?
The word used is flexibility.
Oh, okay.
And as a conservative, flexibility means to me broadening local government, and that means more tax dollars and higher spending for local government services. I'm content as an elected official to do the things the state tells me I have to do and I can do.
All right,
no more.
All right, we're going to run to a quick break. I want to talk about when we had folks on who were in favor of it, they got into this business about taxes, and I know that's a big concern that you have. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society, doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're talking about local government reform, home rule in this case, with Commissioners Dennis Stuckey and Scott Martin, opponents of this proposal in Lancaster County to change the form of government. We had the other side on a couple of weeks ago. All right, one of the big points, I think, of difference between the supporters and opponents has to do with what this would do to the fiscal picture, actually the tax structure and all of that. What is your concern about that, Scott?
You know, clearly, Lancaster County is the largest third-class county in the state of Pennsylvania. Actually, we're the size of a two-way county. We hit that 500,000 mark. Yet Lancaster County, as far as effectiveness and efficiency, has the lowest per capita spending of any of those third-class counties, even though it's the largest. And we sit at about $575 per person. Now, the truth of the matter is, when you look at the other home rule counties that are also third-class counties, compared to Lancaster's $575 per person, you have Erie at $1,397 a person, you got Northampton at $1,184 a person, and you have Lehigh at $1,184 per person. I mean, you're talking over 100% higher in each of those cases. So it shows you that they're doing more up there with a smaller population in those counties.
So go ahead. No, is that because you think their ability to raise, that if you expand the capacity to tax, that they will do that just because they have the ability to do it?
Well, again, I go back to my statement of flexibility. Pardon me. If there's an opportunity there to expand local government, it will happen, and it will be more costly to the taxpayer.
You know, one of the things we talked about was this whole business in general of local government reform. I mean, not particularly Lancaster County. Now, both of you are in a county government. You understand its structure. You run it. Is there a place for an evaluation of a structure, for example, that is hundreds of years old, which does involve electing officials whose jobs are primarily administrative, who don't have any real policy-making considerations? They literally do what the state says they can do. Their functions in many other places would be appointive. So how do you answer that you got this big unwieldy structure out there that needs to be reformed? Now, we're not talking about county controller, because almost everywhere the controller's elected. You need that fiscal watchdog.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Well, perhaps that should come from the top, and I'm talking Harrisburg, a evaluation of Harrisburg government, and because we're the Commonwealth system, we are creatures of Harrisburg. Right. Maybe it should start there. And that would be my suggestion as to how to evaluate local governments. If you're not going to sit back and say townships and boroughs must merge or consider merging to make things theoretically more efficient, and I'm not convinced that they will. As a former borough councilman, we found ways to work with our local townships and school district to provide the services to the community in an effective manner.
So the point, Scott, is you all are saying that you think you don't even need any structural changes, like, why elect a prothonotary or clerk of courts? Harry Truman once passed through the state and said, "What's a prothonotary?" I mean, go ahead.
No, from a certain standpoint, elections breed competitiveness, which tends to breed quality. And I don't know if you've seen lately, with a lot of our elected row offices in county government have actually brought a lot of innovative changes. They, whether it's updates in technologies, making things available on websites. We had one recorder of deeds who basically shrunk the size of his department in half by taking advantage of technology. So that standpoint, it's good. But in dealing with the state legislature and making changes in our level, there's a bill that's been floating for a couple of years they're trying to pass to eliminate the position of jury commissioner. Those kind of changes can happen. Or when a township wanted to have the ability to go from 3 supervisors to 5, the state was able to address that. But my thing is, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, especially as we do as efficiently as we do in our county.
All right, well, look, I want to thank you both for coming on. Equal time, we believe in it on this show. Coming up, Jan Jarrett, the new president of PennFUTURE. Environmental update. Back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Joining me is Jan Jarrett. She is the president of PennFUTURE, replacing John Hanger. Most of our regular viewers know Mr. Hanger. He is now secretary designee. Do I have this right?
Of
the Department of Environmental Protection. I know that.
Yeah.
What do we call him? Secretary designee. Is that good?
Most of the time he's referred to as acting secretary.
Okay, we'll do that. Acting secretary.
Yeah.
At any rate, Jan, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Look, let's talk a little bit about sort of the environmental picture in Pennsylvania. You know, the legislature is not going to be in very long, but obviously you all in the environmental community have a long-range plan for what you would like to see the state do. Talk a little bit about what you think are the broad, the goals of your administration now that you're the new head.
Well, we're focused all the time on energy policy. So our top priority is to make sure that Pennsylvania gets its energy policies right.
Okay.
And in particular, makes it possible and helps people save energy as much as possible. It's the fastest, cheapest, easiest way to make sure we've got an adequate and reliable energy supply. Another big issue that's floating to the top that we're going to be really monitoring is the drilling for natural gas in the Marcellus Shale Formation. There's an absolute gold rush out there.
Now, where is that located?
That covers almost 2/3 of the state, with the exception of the southeast corner.
That's right.
And it's a gas deposit that's very, very deep down, like 14,000 feet down. And technology makes it possible now to recover that gas. And also, since the price went up, it's economically feasible now to go after that. It used to be prohibitively expensive, but now it's... So we've got to make sure that that is done in a way that doesn't harm the environment and pollute the water and take too much water out of the streams to actually do this process. So it's a big issue that we're really keeping track of.
But conservation, I think also there's another element. I mean, I think that in Pennsylvania, I've seen just a sea change in terms of the attitude of people towards, they understand, that, we have to have jobs, we have to have, production of energy, as you pointed out, but there's also lots of things that we should be doing in our own lives, and government and businesses ought to be doing. Just sort of common sense things that you would think we would have done 30 or 40 years ago.
That's right. And government can be a big part of helping us do that. I think there has been a big change. I think that there used to be an attitude that you either have a good environment or a good economy, jobs or bunnies or something. That attitude, maybe a few people still hold on to that, but that's gone. People understand that good environmental quality is a prerequisite to making a place where business wants to come and grow.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, there's a piece of legislation that I know you folks are interested in that has to do with conservation programs that ultimately would reduce energy use by some measurable percentage.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, as we're sitting here today, I'm a little distressed, actually. The House passed a bill, House Bill 2200, which sets up robust energy conservation programs all across Pennsylvania and requires cuts in the demand for electricity by 2.5% overall by 2013 and by 4% of peak demand, which is a very important concept.
That's great.
It also would require the utilities to give everybody a smart meter, which PP&L has already done.
And we're going to, in the final segment, we're going to, Jan has brought, you have a picture of your own smart meter?
I have my own
We're going to give you a
meter.
graphic here in a minute,
Right.
but
That's
go
right.
ahead.
Let me talk a little bit more about that. Unfortunately, it was amended in the Senate Consumer Protection and Licensure Committee, and it's now kind of consumer unfriendly, business unfriendly, and it actually creates disincentives for utilities to really set up these programs. So we're not pleased with what happened. It came out of the House with bipartisan support, and we can talk a little bit more about why it's important for this to...
Why is it important? Let's talk about that. I mean, what's the broad goal of this?
Well, the broad goal is to cut our demand, our growing demand for electricity, to sort of stop the growth in the demand for electricity. And the cheapest way to do that is you know, just through these conservation measures. It costs 3 cents per kilowatt hour to get your supply through conservation. It costs 10 cents per kilowatt hour to get it from generation side, from power plants producing it. So it's very cost effective to make sure that we've got a reliable energy supply by saving as much energy as possible. It saves you money on your bills. It creates jobs for the people who will be installing these energy conservation measures. Good jobs that can't be outsourced for you know, for folks like plumbers, electricians, you know, really good family sustaining jobs.
I've not had a chance. Governor Rendell, as I think our regular viewers know, is a frequent guest on the program. Has he weighed in on this at all, or is it not at the point yet where...
Oh, he's been weighing in for months on this. I mean, this is one of his top priorities.
Okay. I knew energy was. I didn't know about this piece of it, but go ahead.
Yeah, this piece is one of the most important pieces of the package that he did. We were fortunate to get through a funding bill that provides $625 million for renewable energy, geothermal, energy conservation, green buildings. The best part about that was it has $200 million for solar energy, and $180 million of that is earmarked for people like you and me and small businesses to be able to put, you know, solar power plants on our roofs. It will pay for like 35% of the cost of doing that. It also incentivizes the location of solar manufacturing here to make the parts that we'll need for that. So that was a real big important win. But this other piece is equally, if not more important, because it really goes to being able to save money, keeping the demand down, which reduces the need to build more power plants or extend new transmission lines all over the place. So it's a key part of a really sound energy conservation policy, but it's got to be done right. And it's got to be done in a way that incentivizes the utilities and others to be able to provide the services and provides real incentives for people to invest in energy conservation measures.
All right, we're going to take a little break. When we come back, smart meters. We're going to show you what one looks like, and maybe it's something you ought to think about getting. We'll be back in a moment.
Okay.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by PennFUTURE, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back. We're talking with Jan Jarrett from PennFUTURE. Now, look, we've actually, I talked with John Hanger at least one time before about these smart meters. Now, we're getting into another one of those periods where when you get these big extremes in weather changes, right, where it does something to your energy bill, I think, right?
Yeah, the smart meter helps
I know.
most. Yeah, on the hottest days of the year to
Yeah.
keep down the peak demand.
Right.
Now let's talk a little bit about these smart meters. Unfortunately, the Senate's committee's amendments have weakened the provisions in House Bill 2200. Instead of everybody gets a smart meter, it says that you'd only get it if you want it, and then you'd have to pay for it, which is consumer unfriendly. In the previous version of it, it was in rates like it is now. Plus, it says to the utility, you can't recover the cost of those smart meters.
And we have a picture of it. Now,
That's mine. This is not rocket science. I've got to point
Good,
that out.
because some of us, you're going to have to help us. No, I see PPL there.
Yeah,
go
everybody,
ahead.
every PPL customer, and if you live in this,
I do. I'm a PPL
You have
customer.
one of these.
Yeah.
You have a smart meter, as do I. And what this will allow the utility to do will give you different flexible pricing plans to let you get greater control over when you use energy and how much you pay for it, because it'll
Now,
go two
I'm going to
ways.
ask you a real dumb question.
Yes.
If they can do it, why can't everybody do it? Is that a dumb question?
It is the question.
Okay.
It is the question. And all over the country, utilities are moving to deploy these meters pretty quickly. Like by 2011, there'll be millions and millions of these out there. It's really odd that they say now that the utilities, if they do these smart meters, as they replace maybe dumb meters, they can't recover it in rates. But they can do that right now. The meter is a part of the grid technology, like the poles and the lines and the wires. The meters are part of that, and it's normally in rates. It's very perverse. The other thing that the changes did was it puts the fox in charge of the hen house in terms of delivering these energy conservation programs. It says that the utilities will do it, and the utilities don't have an incentive to cut the amount of electricity they're selling you. If you conserve, their revenues go down. Now, what it does is it says, but if you don't do a good program, you've got to pay a penalty of $5 million. But with good, robust energy conservation programs, utilities stand to have a cut in their sales by about $100 million. So you're going to lose $100 million, or you're going to lose $5 million. If you're a rational CEO of a utility, answerable to you shareholders, which thing do you choose?
Yeah,
It's a
that's a good
disincentive to do a good program.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that this can be fixed. It makes absolutely no sense, and I can't understand what's happened. But it's a key part of part of saving energy.
Well, I'm glad you brought your smart meter in, and obviously PP&L is doing the right thing.
Yes.
I think we would all agree there.
That's
My
right.
utility, I can say that.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for watching Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well. We'll see you next week.